Welcome back everyone to the Hello World guys. This is another episode of the OpenGL 3D renderer series, and in this video we are going to finally get started loading our models from file. Instead of defining the mesh manually here, we are going to load it from different kinds of files that can be exported from a 3D software. So in order to do that, we must understand that a single file may not contain a single mesh. Of course it will contain a bunch of stuff. It may contain lights and also cameras and a bunch of other stuff, but since this in this series, of course I am not going to kind of show you how to do all of that, but instead just we are creating like a basic 3D renderer. So all we are concerned is creating the actual meshes, and a single file may contain multiple meshes. So we are going to create a class called model, and that model class will store each mesh in it. So what we can do is we can go under 3D renderer here in our project and add a class, and for this class I'm going to call this model. And what this class is going to be basically have all of the methods for loading the actual file from a different kinds of file formats, and then also have methods to kind of we have got to kind of create like different meshes and then also draw them, because it's essentially going to create have a vector of meshes, a list of meshes that it's going to use when we need to draw anything, and it's going to load them from a file. So let's get started with the first part of the implementation of this model class. So in the implementation of this class, we are going to first of all go ahead and put public and private here, public and private, and this is as I said before, going to store a list of meshes, a vector of meshes. So we need to include mesh.h obviously, because we are using a vector of that. So we are going to create a std vector of mesh called meshes, and that's like a model will contain just all of the meshes that the model is supposed to contain when we read it from a file. And in the public methods, what we'll do is we'll create a model constructor here, and that will take a const string reference so that we save performance. So we are going to basically use a string for the file name that we need to load this model from. So that is pretty awesome. Of course we need to make sure we include the string header before we actually use that, and yeah, that's pretty awesome. So now the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to go under let's first of all go ahead and implement this here, and now what we can do is we can go ahead and create another function here called draw, which will draw the model. You might want this to have like a shader reference called shader, along with perhaps like a vector 3 or called color, like we had that color in the object. Perhaps you'd like to have that in model as well. We need to of course make sure that we include shader.h as well. And now we are going to implement this inside of create the implementation in the cpp file. By the way, we also need one more thing here in this draw function. Before of course we are going to set the color to a default value, but we need one more argument here, which is going to be a matrix for call transformation, which will represent the transformation so that we can actually set the correct model matrix. So now what we are going to do inside the cpp file for the draw function, we can just go over each mesh and draw each mesh one by one, just like we would normally. So we can run a range based for loop, which will go through, not model actually, we'll go through each mesh in our meshes like vector we have got. We'll go through each of those, and for each mesh we'll say mesh dot draw, and draw function takes no arguments and nothing. And of course for the transformation, what we'll have to do is we'll have to set that in the shader. By the way, I do not think we need color here. Let's just leave that to object. Object will set it to the shader automatically. For now, let's just remove this, and yeah, let's just not have color here. And that's pretty awesome. But when we are drawing the mesh, what we need to do is we need to go and say shader dot set value, and we are going to set of course the model matrix to our transformation, and we also need to use the shader for drawing the model of course, mesh of course. And one thing we want to make sure is that we set the model matrix to our transformation, so we need to pass the name as well. So that's going to set our model matrix to the correct transformation. And if I go on back here, you can see in our object class we need to modify the object class as well to store a model instead of just a mesh. So yeah, that's what we need to do. So let's go ahead and do that. So in 3d render.cpp, let me actually open that. By the way, we can make this const, since we are only using const functions here, so we should probably take const reference. In here I'm going to create a model called model, and of course we need to include model.h, and we need to give it a file name as well. Currently we'll just leave it empty because we have not implemented the constructor yet. And in object, what we are going to do is we are going to change this mesh pointer to model pointer, and we are going to, in the draw function, we'll need to of course change everything as well, because just like that it won't work. We'll remove the function line in which we are setting the model matrix, and instead what we'll do is we'll just say model draw and then use shader and get transformation matrix for the actual transformation. And of course we need to rename this to model, and also kind of include model.h here. Yeah, and that is pretty awesome. And of course we need to modify our constructor to store everything in a correct manner. So let's go ahead and do that. Model pointer called model, actually, and that is getting a bit wrong here. We need to create a const model pointer called model in taking that argument, and with that argument what we can do is of course we need to change it in the header file as well, and with that we can use it in here to kind of like draw the mesh. And of course we need to mark this model function draw function as const, so that we can use it on a const pointer. And that is pretty much all we need to do for making our object class now use models instead of meshes. And of course we'll need to go under our main file. In the main file we need to make sure we pass the address of our model to the object, and that is pretty awesome. But the thing is that inside of each model, each mesh may be at a different position or a different location or something. So for that we'll need to go under our mesh.h, and in here I'll create a public variable which will be a glm matrix 4 which I'll just call transformation. And we'll get the transformation matrix for this thing, like when we are loading the file, we'll get the transformation matrix and store it here so that we can use it later. And when we are drawing each mesh, what we need to do is we need to go under here, and we need to make sure that we go ahead and set mesh dot transformation multiplied by the transformation that we have got, because if you don't multiply these two together it won't be good. So this way it will kind of move it by model as well, and then also by a mesh's local transformation, so both the model's main transformation and the local transformation as well. So yeah, that is going to get it pretty much done for us. And of course we currently do not actually load the model, but that is something we are going to do in the next video, so stay tuned for that, and make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss that, and share this video with other people as well. And bye.